And welcome back to another edition of my annotations of Langston Hughes poems. This is the last one, so don't worry, you won't have to listen to me talk anymore. Alright, let's get to this. So first I'm going to be talking about democracy, and I have a few things I want to point out here. First I'm going to say, first of all, I'm going to go, because I talked about the theme, which was injustice, in the last video, and if you didn't watch it, you can go watch that. Let's see, tone and mood. The tone in this poem, it's fairly negative. He believes democracy is unfair and biased, and he believes that racial inequality it's a staple in our environment, and it has to stop, and I frankly agree with him. The mood, it's stiff, brittle, strong, and if you want to read it again, well, because I'll keep it on here, you read it and you think of toughness. You think of like someone that could get hit in the jaw and come back up. And so, yeah, there's the tone and mood. Let's see the figurative language. We have some figurative language in here. First, I'll start down here. The simile. It says, "I want freedom just as you." This is the last line of the poem, and this is comparing him to the reader, which would be you at this point. He's comparing that everyone wants freedom. It's not just a one-person thing. There is an illusion. He is stating that the world isn't fair with democracy for all people. It's very unequal. Racial inequality is a big factor in this. That's pretty much what this poem, as I said, was all about. It's unfair, inequality, it's a staple in our environment. I have some punctuation to point out too. There's a lot of enjambments. If you were to look here, the third stanza, he ends everything with a period, but everything else, if you were to read it up here, democracy will not come today, this year, nor ever through compromise and fear. That's pretty much all one sentence shoved into a stanza. So I just labeled it and jammed it for all these 4 lines. And also there's a caesura right here in the middle where it says today, this, comma, this year. It's right in the middle of this line. So that's a caesura, because if it stops the poem right in the middle of the line, that's considered a caesura. And just in case you don't know what an enjambment is, that would be if you're like continuing a sentence, not ending it at the end of the line. There's another enjambment here in the second stanza. If you were to look here, is "I have as much right as the other fellow has to stand on my 2 feet and own the land." This is pretty much all one sentence again. You see, he capitalizes it because that's what you got to do in a poem. But if you were to write this down just on a plain piece of paper and read it, you're like, that's a sentence. So that's pretty much what an enjambment is. Let's see, back here in the 4th and 5th stanzas down here. Enjambment, "Freedom is a strong seed planted in a great need." These are I believe they're 2 different sentences. They may be one, but if you were to read it, these 2 are definitely connected as a sentence, and so are these 2 on the bottom. In the 5th stanza, we have a caesura over here. He says, "I live here, comma, 2." So he used punctuation in the middle of a sentence, which would then be considered a caesura. And then he says, "I want freedom just as you." That is definitely an enjambment. It's one sentence into 2 lines. And there's a rhyme scheme in case you want to look. I labeled it. It's A, B, C, B for the first one. You got D, E, F, G, F, and H, I, H, J, J, then K, L, M, L, and N, O, N. Not very simple, but if you were to look at it a few times, you'd be able to understand it. This is pretty much it for democracy. I'm going to move on to Still Here Now. This is a shorter poem, as I said earlier. I'll go ahead and start with the rhyme scheme now. It goes A, B, B, then C, B, then D, E, F. There's no rhyme scheme in the 3rd stanza, but in the first, it goes A, B, B, which is a very common rhyme scheme in a lot of poems. There's a few punctuation here. There's an enjambment right here. "Looks like between them they done tried to make me." There is no period, there's no comma, nothing to indicate that it's the end of a sentence. And this makes me conclude that there's an enjambment right here. There's also two caesuras in one line over here. It says stop laughing, comma, stop loving, comma, stop living. These two commas right here are caesuras. And we have one or two metaphors. I put these little things to make it look like one, but it's two. The sun has frizzed me, and the sun has baked me. It's not too hard to understand, but it's pretty much, he's cold, he's hot. It's plain metaphor. Then I have some tone and moods over here. The tone for this poem would be Langston Hughes has a positive attitude towards this poem. He wants people to realize it is never the end. I really like this poem. I said this earlier. I really like it because you get punched in the mouth and you get back up. I love it. And that's kind of my mentality. The mood, it's energetic, excited, and carefree. So if you were to read it over, you would think this is not done by someone who's mad, who is angry, who's sad. They're kind of like letting it go, writing down on paper so they can get it down. And the theme, once again, is never give. I said it was never giving up. It's really just kind of comes back to me like that. So this does it for part 2. If you want to look over this right here, you can. I have a first video you can go look at. Thank you for watching. I'm finally done talking. You're welcome.